What's good, everybody? I hope everyone's having a good day. Today we're going to be taking a look at another favorite lolcow of mine, and that would be Nova Online. Now, Nova Online is a pretty infamous character, especially if you're familiar with lolcows, specifically TikTok lolcows, but today we are going to be doing something a little different than a lot of what we've seen from Nova in the past, which is an interview, and not with Nova himself, but with the infamous Uncle Drew. Now, Uncle Drew is a really interesting character in the Novine universe because Uncle Drew is consistently one of Nova's biggest ops out there. Surprisingly enough, it's not the trolls, it's not anybody outside. It's his own family. But anyway, the video we're going to be looking at today comes from Bludspeth, who is another YouTuber, and I will link his channel in the description. He conducted an interview with Nova's uncle. I encourage you guys to go watch that video because I'm not going to include all of the stuff from there, and I'm gonna cut out the part where he explains how he got the interview. But I encourage everyone to go watch his video because it's very entertaining, to say the least. But without further ado, let's get into that video.
Now it's time to get into the interview. Keep in mind that Uncle Drew was hospitalized and medicated during this interview, which is the reason he declined to call. And without further ado, let's begin the interview. Thank you. Firstly, what was Gabriel like when he was younger? Did he show signs of the temperament he currently has?
No, he was a sheltered only child, growing up afraid of everything.
What did the relationship between you two when he was younger look like?
Good. I'm the only one to spend time with him, learning to fish, working on cars. Grandma got him gardening. His mother and father got him into the computer as a way to babysit him, so they didn't have to.
So this kind of confirms what I already assumed about Nova, which is that at one point he wasn't completely like this. It's kind of similar to Chris Chan in a way, where he, at the start, he was just kind of a weird guy. He wasn't necessarily like the insane, like, internet supervillain we know him as now. At one point, he was kind of a functioning person. You know, especially if you look at his older content, he at one point was more or less almost like a normal guy. You know, despite the severe autism, he was pretty standard. But that's not in any way an excuse for his behavior because, you know, I was more or less raised on the internet pretty similarly to Nova. Nova's only a little bit older than me because I'm only 18. Nova's I'm pretty sure he's like 20 or 21 by now. I would have to check to be certain, but, you know, I was raised in a pretty similar fashion. I grew up online and I didn't turn out like him, so, you know, that's in no way like justifying what he's done, especially being a predator, being like a doing all the stuff that he's infamous for. You can't really excuse that with, oh, well, I grew up on the internet.
Would you say he grew up on the internet?
Yes, take away his access, and he has classic withdrawal fits. Screaming, just going off like any spoiled single kid.
Yeah, we kind of already knew this as well. It's pretty obvious that Nova has a bit of a problem with the amount of time he spends on a screen. And I'm not trying to sound like a boomer here. You know, I'm not trying to sound like your 70-year-old dad. You need to get off that damn phone! But, you know, Nova could use a few days without it.
Has he shown any interest in girls from what you've seen?
Some of us teased him wanting to know when he was going to get a girlfriend. He's awkward, shy, afraid of his own shadow. It's TikTok that's told him who he can be and do what he wants. There is no right or wrong, only what TikTok tells him. His own words.
I don't know why he asked this question, but it's so funny. Because, yeah, a few of Nova's accounts have been uncovered on different sites, different programs and stuff, which has kind of brought Nova's sexuality into the question. I think he asked this question because of the gay allegations. It's so funny even calling them that, the gay rumors about Nova, that he just figured he might as well ask it from the source.
When did the arguments between you two start?
When I found out he was lying to me, and I called him on it, 2.5 years ago.
What was he lying to you about?
That's a private matter.
Who wants to guess what that private matter was?
I understand. Did that original argument spiral your relationship downwards?
There was no argument there, it was him crossing a line. I put him on the spot over it, and it eventually led to me turning my back on him. It was his going on TikTok saying false things and acting like a pervert. That was the final straw.
So if you weren't able to guess that that was the situation, you might be a little new to the Nova story, because it's kind of a well-known fact that Nova likes him young, okay? Nova is yeah, that type of guy. So I assume that his uncle, Uncle Drew, at one point confronted him and was like, "Hey, man, what's going on? Why are you doing this online? Why are you feeding into these people?" And Nova, as we know, guys, Nova just really loves taking accountability for the stuff he does. He's a really honest guy. So obviously his uncle's lying, and Nova took that confrontation perfectly well. And yet, no, Nova freaked out. He went on TikTok and started yelling and screaming about it, how his family was getting involved. That was years ago. And honestly, I really don't blame Uncle Drew whatsoever for being like, I don't want a part in what you're doing anymore, because think about it, especially knowing what we know now with Nova and, his following online and his infamy. Yeah, I really don't blame Uncle Drew for noping out of that before he could at least, and he's not even a very like internet savvy guy. He could see it was gonna get out of hand more than it already was. So I really don't blame him for kind of just, dipping out when he could, because he made the right choice.
I get it. So you have people who watch Nova's TikToks and tell you about them.
Yes, his name is Gabriel. There is no Nova.
I apologize. I know Gabriel is Nova due to him going by that name online. Have you watched his TikToks yourself?
They have been forwarded to me.
What are your thoughts on them?
He needs to be under a doctor's care.
How so?
Because he has issues, obviously. And if Hayes being a perv online, how long before he eventually acts on it?
So this clip of the interview alone, in my opinion, is probably one of the best, because it gives us a lot of lore in a really short amount of time. So firstly, Nova's uncle thinks he needs to be institutionalized, essentially, is kind of what he's saying. Under a doctor's care is the exact wording he used. So that is a big step from what everyone else has been saying so far, which, a common consensus is kind of, Nova could do without a few days online. Nova should probably close out all of his accounts and just wipe the internet of his presence, because it's not doing any good for anybody. It gives us entertainment, but realistically, for Nova's sake, he needs to stop posting videos. So I've recorded this next take almost 10 times now, because I'm trying to really decipher what Uncle Drew is saying in this next text message. And it kind of bridges into horror cow territory, which is kind of terrifying, because in my opinion, it reads almost retroactively. It almost reads as like, we had to stop him, instead of like, we don't know if we could stop him. And it's, again, this is very, very alleged, but it reads in a way where it's like something might have almost happened before, and Uncle Drew or someone else in his family had to put a stop to it. Because, yeah, that's terrifying that this guy's just out and free and, able to go and do whatever. Because if he has these tendencies, he really does need to be put somewhere where he can't hurt anyone.
Do you believe he'd act on those urges you think he has?
Eventually, he's already been kicked out of the church and cost my sister her position because of his inappropriate questions and his TikTok videos.
Really? Do you mind telling me more about the situation?
That's it in a nutshell.
So, two things here. Firstly, that is awful that he cost his aunt a position at her job because of his reputation online. That's kind of scary, and I feel so bad for his aunt, because I can only imagine if one of my relatives or one of my family members was so infamous online that it caused me like employment issues. That is awful. So, I really do feel for that woman, because that's terrible. second thing is, yeah, he got kicked out of his church because of all this. Kind of following in the footsteps of Chris Chan, another lolcow who had basically the exact same thing happen to him because of his bad reputation online. He was kicked out of his church just to, kind of maintain image. And I'm a Christian, and I've seen a lot of, I've seen some discourse about, whether his church was correct in doing this. Personally, I think that it's probably fair game. This guy's an out in the open predator. He's very publicly known online for kind of having this type of behavior, so I don't blame them whatsoever for not wanting him in person if they know that he's prone to this type of stuff. And yeah, I really don't think they're in the wrong for that.
Does she resent him for it?
I'm not a born again. I do not agree with hypocrites, and I don't like Gabriel the way he is. And honestly, if I ever caught anyone harming a child, I would hard press to not put a blank in someone for such crimes. I've made it clear to his TikTok friends threatening me I'm always armed, and Gabriel knows this. As far as my sisters go, they have nothing to do with him. His friends have threatened them. Big mistake.
Really? Gabriel's friends are harassing your family?
Yes. I was texted today, me cutting this off. I'm done.
Okay, so firstly, based Uncle Drew moment, but yeah, that's not a great look for Nova, man. I really don't know what friends his uncle's talking about. I assume that they're trolls that he just assumed were friends because they were messing with him, and him and Nova have beef. So I'm not sure completely what's going on there. We might get some more light into that in the future, but yeah, just not looking great for Nova, man.
I understand. Thank you for your time.
I'm in the hospital and have been medicated, and it's never a good thing talking to anyone under the influence. Personally, I'd cut him off and ban him from being on TikTok.
I understand. Thank you.
So that's the interview, and it's really hard to kind of piece all the, because we kind of just got some clues as to the reality of what's going on. So it's kind of hard to piece together everything that we just found out into the lore that we've already constructed with Nova. I think the biggest takeaway here is that Nova is... everything that we're seeing is kind of true. It hasn't been blown out of proportion. Nova is really this person, and he should realistically be a person of, not higher interest, but higher watch. There should be more people keeping tabs on this guy. What's he doing day to day? Who's he talking to? Who's he contacting? Because it's becoming more and more evident that this guy isn't just your run-of-the-mill internet predator. He is an actual threat, and there is likely something deeply wrong with him, as Uncle Drew kind of insinuated there, and he should probably be kept under watch a little more, in a more scrutinizing manner. But yeah, that's really all I've got today. So if you guys want to see me cover any other topics, just drop them in the comments below. I will be reading them. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. I will be posting a lot more content like this. And give me a comment if you want to see anything in particular. But that's all I have for now. So yeah, see you next time.
I feel like